What is going on, guys? My name is Jay, and today I'm going to be bringing you a chess.com video. So you can see a slightly failed run I did here. So this one I did manage to make it over. I did manage to complete a 2000 plus rated puzzle, but obviously um, Puzzle Rush lets you lose 3 puzzles, and so I just used that to my advantage, but I figured that wasn't very exciting, and also the video was only like 5 minutes, so I decided to do it properly, get a perfect streak up to and including a 2000 rated puzzle, um, and then, what am I trying to say? Yeah, do that and then explain the puzzles. So that's why this video is longer than 5 minutes and isn't going to have any mistakes before 2000. So I could talk about some of the puzzles you're seeing on screen. Actually, the footage is even kind of cut off. That was this was definitely early in my chess.com recordings. There is a chess.com video coming up because I used my free trial to do like the puzzles and stuff. Um, and honestly, comparing it to Lichess, I don't think it's necessarily like any better or anything. You know, it costs money, um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, some people might prefer like the UI or something, but yeah. Anyway, so here it is. And I think I even get a higher number streak as well in the official run. So get ready for that. Here it is. So here's the first puzzle, simple mate in one. And you can see I'm doing sort of a post-mortem review because obviously it shows all the greens there, so you can probably believe that I actually did it. Oh, and the footage is still cut off. That's unfortunate. But anyway, now here I thought it was gonna. Did we just take the free queen? Yeah. Okay. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, you can see, um, the actual like ratings for all the puzzles that I finished and had green, and so if you just believe the footage isn't doctored, obviously I actually did the run, but I figured it would be more interesting to just click through each of them and give sort of a little mini explanations, like here's a back rank mate, knight covers the escape square. I thought this might be more useful if you're trying to get into puzzle solving, or if you're really interested in puzzles. Here's another back rank. Because obviously when I do the puzzle rush myself, or even just doing puzzles, I usually go too fast. So nobody can really tell what's going on. Here's a nice mate. So mate in 2. You can see we push the king back, and then it's a back rank mate. So, oh, and I didn't even play the moves. I think I do consistently play the moves later on, but I at least show you the arrows, which I guess is something. This is just would be a free bishop. Actually, it's a free king. Got a nice checkmate here. Yeah, that is something interesting. I guess because en passant could be a thing, they always show you the move before instead of just the position you start in. So anyway, here's checkmate. It's actually technically a back rank checkmate. And then of course the bishop allowed us to do that first move there. Here, probably a checkmate. Yeah, I think probably just queen. Oh yeah, because the bishop covers one square, the rook covers the other square. Yep, and so that's just mate. There it is. And you can see here, this is a 41 streak. I think the failed run was a 36. So here he's probably going to move his queen, but that looks like we're just going to checkmate him regardless of what he does here. Unless he did something really crazy like, yeah, okay. Let's see, next one. So, this one I probably remembered. Yeah, and the knight protects the queen there, so that's nice. Yeah, when I was doing this, I didn't, like I had just done them. Oh, here's a nice mate. I had just done all these puzzles, so I remember most of them, but actually some of them I sort of like resolve for you, which you may or may not find interesting because I'm just doing it with arrows instead of the pieces. Anyway, this is similar to the one we saw before. Remember, I pushed back the king, or I guess pushed right the king. The only difference here was that he had a pawn that he could block with just to extend the game by one more move, but obviously that didn't save him in the end. Next one here, up to 839, okay. And push the king back, and then... Oh, and then you just take the queen. And I guess you don't take... Oh. Okay, so you push the king back, and then because the king was protecting the queen, you get to take a free queen. It's pretty nice. Yep. So you deflect the defender. Next puzzle. Let's see. Got 2 rooks. They look nice. Oh. Yeah, sort of a back rank. This is a side rank, technically. But it's the same idea of, you know, we're cutting off the other rank. And so the king is on the edge of the board. It's on an edge of the board. And so then you just use the rook to finish the job. Here, yep, you check. That covers all that. We're covering that, covering that. Oh, is this just mate? Oh, yeah, because the pawns. Yeah, we have pawns here. And so you can see once we move the bishop, it's mate. Very simple. I think we're over 1,000? No, not quite. 994. So here, that's the only legal move, and then mate. Protected by the rook. So, a lot of checkmates, of course. You do sometimes get really crazy stuff like perpetual check, which you don't get, or at least you don't get as far as I've noticed on Lichess. Oh, here's a back rank mate with a queen sack. It's kind of nice. You can see how when he takes your queen, he doesn't have anything that can protect the back rank. So we remove the one defender of the king there. Yep, and then he goes there, and then probably rook there. Yep, and then the pawn helps a lot here. That's mate. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not worth going into detail about all of these, because obviously a lot of them are just checkmates, and if you understand checkmates, then, you know, whether or not you'd be able to find them yourself, you'll at least understand them, and if not, then it probably doesn't help with me explaining anyway, but whatever. So what's going on here? We can move the knight with check. Oh, see, and this is another thing that happens a lot on chess.com and not Lichess. We have these moves where it's not immediately like a check or taking piece or anything, it's just setting up like a checkmate, and then playing the checkmate. And then here, of course, notice how we have to check the king. We have to checkmate, actually, because the knight blocks the escape square in the corner. We have to use the rook we already moved because the queen was actually pinning the other rook. And you don't want to take the queen there because, of course, checkmate is better than taking a queen. And we were already down a queen, so that wouldn't be too good for us. Yeah, something I did realize is that, again, sometimes I haven't played the opponent's, or actually every time I haven't played the opponent's move yet, and so I'm like almost guessing. Anyway, here's a checkmate. Notice, yep, the pawn protects, bishop protects the other square, or cuts that off. It's mates. Alright, so we're up to 1200 now, doing pretty well. So what's going on here? We can fork the king and knight. It's the first thing that pops out at me. And then, of course, when you do that... Oh, but of course he moved his king, so we no longer had that idea. So we can take a free pawn, and then... Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah, because your rook is hanging right now, and we would like to take some material and then take his rook, because if we had just taken his rook immediately, he would have taken our rook. If we had just moved our rook away to safety, then he would have moved his rook away to safety. So by taking pieces, that's called a desperado, it lets us take not only his rook, but also some other pieces, and he only got to take our rook in that case. So that is why we went on a rampage with our rook. Anyway, pretty simple idea. We've got, oh, okay, well, you see what I mean? Like, I really should play his move before even thinking about it, but whatever. So yeah, the first move is obvious, taking a pawn with check, you know, hard to beat. Here we have sort of like a ladder checkmate-ish looking thing, maybe? And he blocks. I mean, clearly I solved the puzzle, so I'm sure I saw it. Oh, maybe I have to get the rook involved. No. So he's got a pawn and a queen. Well, I guess that is the move. And then, yeah, what do you do here? Oh, you do another check. And then, yeah, if he blocks, you get to take with the rook now, or the queen. And then if he just moves the king, then we still just attack the queen, and we're kind of setting up, yeah, we're setting up a ladder checkmate of sorts if he tries to run away. So that works out nicely for us. So, yep, obviously there he was in check, so he had to get out of check somehow. And now we're going to set up a sort of checkmate, like if he tried to run away with his queen, so he's going to sacrifice his queen here, I think. I mean, yeah, I'm looking at it actually. What if he goes there? Oh, and then we probably check on the diagonal, maybe? And you can see I've pulled up the analysis, because... But the thing is, when you're solving puzzles, sometimes there's like an obvious, like, you don't even have to think about it sort of thing. You're just like, oh, okay, take with check, check, you know, and then attack a queen. It's like, that doesn't take a huge amount of brain power, if you get what I'm saying. And so I don't always see the full solution when I'm doing these puzzles. So, you know, you could call it getting lucky, but like, when there's literally nothing else that looks good, you know, the worst thing that happens is that you fail a run, and then you have to do it again. So, you know. Anyway, yeah, here I was like, yeah, what if queen b4? Or at least that's what I had shown before. So hopefully I'm about to play that on the board. I probably should cut out some of this analysis time. I mean, this video is already long enough, but yeah, and this was the idea. Oh, a5. Oh, and then he can no longer protect the pawn. So he has to sack the queen. You see that? So right now his queen is protecting the a3 pawn. If he tries to stay on it, and now he's not protecting the diagonal. See, on b4 he was also protecting that b2 diagonal. Wow. And then obviously here you can just take the queen. That's, I mean, 1300 or whatever this puzzle was rated. I don't know, man. I think everyone kind of just guessed like me. But oh well. Yeah, no. Yeah, because the queen is sort of overloaded here, right? It's protecting the a3 pawn, which of course if our queen takes that, it's basically game over. Or in fact, it will be game over, because then we'll checkmate on a2. And then if, oh, yeah, and then we also have the diagonal check, and so his queen has to stay on the diagonal. Oh, or, yeah, he stopped protecting the pawn there, but, wow. Yeah, and then I show here, so see, if his queen moves off of that dark squared diagonal, maybe I've already seen it. Am I still confused about it? That's funny. You gotta understand, I do the audio recordings after the video recordings, in this case well after, so I don't even remember what was going through my head when I did these. I'm just like looking at the footage. Anyway, this is a nice discovered attack, and it's a checkmate, I think. Yeah, king's got no squares. Rook cuts off the column, bishop cuts off the diagonal. It's check. Pretty good. Anyway, here we are clear into the 1300s now, which is nice. This mate in one. This is a dovetail mate. So you see how the king has two friendly pieces laterally, and then we're checking, well, checkmating diagonally. And and then it's protected, obviously. So this is a dovetail mate. I guess I didn't suggest the theme. That was another thing I wanted to do when I was going through these, is I wanted to add the appropriate themes for these puzzles, because sometimes if a puzzle hasn't been played very much, then it won't have a theme suggested. So I thought that would be another fun exercise for myself, and it would just also improve the website overall. So anyway, this is a fork of the checkmate and the knight, if you will. So if he had tried to run away with his knight there, then I would have checkmated him with the queen and bishop. So that's why he had to give up the knight, and he just castled. Here, what's going on here? Well, if our pawn was not on d5, then we could check him, or he would be in check. So I think he probably plays c4 here, which is not a good move, because we just take it, and not only is it check from our queen, but our pawn will be attacking the queen. So you'll see this attacks the queen, and then it's also check. So, and then he can block the check with the queen, so now our pawn can no longer take the queen. But if we take the pawn, see how that deflects the king, and that's why it has that deflection theme. It deflects the king from protecting the queen, so now we get to take the free queen anyway. I mean, we gave up a rook, but, you know, we got a queen. It's pretty good. So here, yeah, if we take... Oh, yeah. This is a fork. And then, yeah. I mean, it messes up his pawn structure, but yeah, we would give up a knight. And he gave up a knight. And we both gave up queens. I mean, we have a really good pass pawn. So I guess that's why this position is winning. But that was literally just an equal trade we played. And I mean, our rook got active. You know, it's on the 7th rank, so that's good. But yeah, kind of tricky. And chess.com has a lot of these where it's like, oh, you know, you have this very good pawn, or oh, this very good rook. But it's like, dude, I didn't win any material. I didn't checkmate the guy. That's crazy. Oh, no, I'm just dumb. No, yeah, then, okay, we attack the rook, and either it runs away and we take it somehow with something, or we just promote. So that's pretty good. So, okay, never mind. Don't listen to me. These puzzles are better than I give them credit for, but they can be very long. I mean, this is like, look at this. This is like 5 or 6 moves in. This is crazy. I don't even know what's interesting about this. And here I'm proving to myself whether this is actually good. I mean, yeah, if you just promote immediately, it's still good. I think the computer was suggesting not doing that because it really likes its pawn, but trading a pawn and a bishop for a rook is obviously good, because now we're just up in exchange, which is pretty clean. So, yeah, no. These puzzles can get very long, though. That's another thing I noticed about chess.com. Sometimes it's like a 5 or 6 move puzzle, or sometimes the puzzle is only like 3 moves, but then to actually prove without a doubt that you're winning, it's like 7 or 8 or 9 moves before you know, get to capture a piece or something. So this is kind of a hard to spot checkmate, and so that's why I was really showing, like, we are cutting off all the squares. It's not always, that's the thing about checkmates, they're not always on like an edge of the board. It's not always like, oh, queen and bishop attack f7. You know, sometimes, like, you really gotta look for them because they don't necessarily look like checkmates. So yeah, the first move here is obvious, and then finding that second move of queen to a8 from the last position might be a little tricky, of course, and that's going to be a ladder checkmate. And I also open the analysis sometimes just to prove, like, hey, it really is checkmate, I'm not crazy, because sometimes the puzzle ends too early, and this is exactly what my arrows showed. It's a ladder checkmate. So, you know, I know how to play chess, guys. Don't you worry. and it was mate in 3, so I guess that is technically 3+, even though we didn't get to play the whole checkmate in the puzzle. Alright, so looking at this... Okay, yeah, if we move the pawn, obviously if he doesn't take, we're going to promote, so he will take. Oh. Yeah, so you do that, I think you push the pawn, and then you threaten checkmate, and he sacks his queen. Because our bishop will be protected by our queen once we move the pawn. And like putting opposite colored bishops, I guess is fair. I mean, typically when I think of opposite colored bishops, it's an endgame that literally only has pawns, and then the opposite colored bishops, maybe a rook per person. I feel like if you still have queens on the board, that doesn't necessarily apply, but maybe I'm being too rigid. So anyway, here I'm showing. Here we're threatening mate. The only way he has to stop it is to sacrifice the queen in some way, so I think he just takes the bishop here. And here I'm just showing every way he has to stop the checkmate, loses his queen. So he chooses to take the bishop, which is, of course, the best. And then I'd show it again, just because it is kind of complicated. You sack the pawn so that our queen will be protecting the bishop once we move it. And then we move the bishop so that we can threaten checkmate, so he has to sacrifice his queen, which is pretty tricky, honestly. This might be higher rated on Lichess. I mean, 1600, I guess, is pretty high, but anyway, here, yeah. This is just mate in 1, because our knight protects, takes away the getaway square. Nice back rank. So, yep, mate in 1, back rank with the queen. We're getting pretty close to the end here. I'm surprised there's this much video left. Honestly, I hope I didn't include a bunch of nonsense. There's probably just like straight analysis. Probably need to edit this video, but I can just ramble through it. Y'all are used to hour-long videos, right? Anyway, here we can take a knight, you'll notice. Our king and rook are attacking the knight, but then we have a king and rook versus a king, rook, and 2 pawns, which means like the best we could do there is probably a draw. So why not checkmate instead? Basically, that's a back rank mate. I mean, side rank, of course, but because of how our kings were positioned like that, the rook attacking just happened to be checkmate, which is quite nice. So here it's actually just mate in 1. I'm surprised I don't see it yet, because our bishop cuts off, whatchamacallit? Is that b7? Yeah. It cuts off b7, and then our bishop also attacks or protects a8, and so if we move our rook to a8, that is a checkmate because our knight takes away those squares, and then of course the bishop helps as well. So that is mate. So kind of tricky. A lot of times back rank mates, you know, the opponent has pawns. In this case, we just took away all of the forward movements, which is pretty cool. I mean, forward for him, I guess it would be backwards from our perspective. Here, I should probably play my opponent's move. But yeah, we have just a mate in 2 that's pretty tricky to spot. Oh, and it's also a fork. Oh my gosh, yeah, if he stops the mate in 2, then it's a fork. And it's tricky because the first move is not a check. It's not capturing anything. It's very tricky. Those are called quiet moves. If a move is not a check and it doesn't take anything, it just sets up a threat. And it's also called a mating net because the idea is that it's not quite checkmate, but we're getting real close. And it, you know, obviously he's not going to let us checkmate him, but the idea is that you set up this mating net, and then when he stops you, you get to win a rook, I guess. Or actually, no, I guess we are going to checkmate him. Oh, right, I was surprised by this. Oh, I think the knight fork is actually checkmate. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I was surprised when I was doing this, the video recording too, because I was like, oh, well, forking, oh, that's pretty good. No, that's straight up checkmate. That's insane. So, anyway. you know, sometimes moves are even better than you give them credit for. Anyway, we're already at 1900 here. I guess that was like an 1800 puzzle, which is fair. You know, I think puzzles rated this high should be tricky, obviously. But here, really the main dilemma you have is whether to move the queen or the knight first. And so I'm very quickly showing with the arrows my thought process between my thought process for both. And I chose the knight attacking the queen, and then I move my queen in because I don't know. I guess if you do the queen first, he just blocks, and it's no big deal. Oh yeah, you need the knight to already be there, because the whole trick is, you know, using that pinned H pawn. You have to be able to take the G pawn, because otherwise, well, what are you doing with yourself? So that's why you move the knight there. You don't move the queen first. You move the knight, and then you do the whole queen and knight trick. And I do show it here as well. The knight already has to be in position. Then we take advantage of the diagonal. And then I did want to just double check, like, what would happen if you just tried to run away instead of falling for the trick of playing g3. And I guess, yeah, obviously you can fork the king and queen, which is very good. Winning queens is good. If he goes here, computer doesn't necessarily love this move, but what this does is, yeah, it attacks the rook and it sets up a family fork. And the computer doesn't like it as much as its variation, but obviously we're still winning. So this is actually a pretty complex puzzle. And I think with all of these later ones, I go pretty in-depth with the analysis, so feel free to watch it. And then, yeah, here's a pretty tricky idea of sacrificing the queen for the rook so that you can win the queen back with the knight fork, which is a very common idea. But seeing all of this from the first move, like without playing anything, would be very tricky. And then here's, I think this is probably the last variation I looked at. Like, oh, is this actually that good? Because obviously I saw taking a free pawn, and then obviously another idea here is a discovered check on the king when you move the knight. And then, yeah, if you take the pawn and attacks the rook, that's probably good, but yeah, and the computer agrees. That's also, either one is good. You can pretty much do anything here that makes sense, and you're gonna win something. I guess we're threatening some nasty stuff. Yeah, here can probably just take the rook, which the computer doesn't love, but obviously still winning. And then the rook has nowhere to run away. The king doesn't have any way to protect the rook because of the knight and the queen blocking the squares it would be able to use for defense. So, yep, that should be fully explained. 1988, getting very close to 2000 here. I did go a little above 2000, which is pretty neat. But, yeah, here you have to see that the g-pawn is pinned by the bishop. And so when we move our queen to h3, it looks insane, but he has no way to capture it. And it sets up two different checkmates because both of our bishops would be able to checkmate a pawn, right? Either the h or the g pawn. So he stops one of the checkmates. Actually, he stops both. But then we can just threaten it again. Oh, we threaten it again, and we reactivate that h pawn checkmate. Because you see the knight was protecting the h pawn, so by taking the knight, we can now just take that h pawn for free with checkmate. You can see I'm getting a call up in the top right. I don't think I answered it. If I did, I'll probably have to cut that out of the recording. But yeah. So yeah, pretty tricky though, because obviously you have to use the forks. You have to see that there are two potential checkmates and that he cannot stop both of them. So anyway, here's the puzzle that made this video title, the title of this video, accurate. And it's pretty straightforward. The idea is you fork the king and bishop. If he protects, obviously the knight is hanging there, so then you get to just take the knight. And then the puzzle keeps going because it's like, hey, don't get your queen trapped. So you just have to make sure you don't get your queen trapped. So this puzzle is probably overrated, honestly. I mean, it's a bit long for what it is. You know, you could have probably just stopped it at forking the king and bishop and called it like an 1,000 rated puzzle or less. But, you know, it is good to practice like, hey, where can my queen even move at this point? Because obviously, if you move your queen in to take a free piece, and then you actually just trap your queen, then, well, that wasn't very good. So this is the only safe square, and then if he keeps attacking your queen is going to get out one way or another. So we were actually allowed to take the piece, so then he just takes a piece. So obviously here, you know, don't take the rook because it's protected. Don't take the bishop. Don't take the other bishop because it was obviously defended. Just take back and you're good. And then here, I think this is beyond the scope of the actual puzzle. Sometimes when you do these post-puzzle analyses, they'll show a longer variation than the one you had to play during the puzzle. But like at this point, if you just add up the material, like we're already winning, so it's just showing a sample variation of what could have happened. And I think I might have analyzed with the computer, the queen can actually run away. Like if you're just scared of having your queen near all of his pieces, I think your queen is actually allowed to run away pretty much whenever, and you're still completely winning there. So anyway, here's the first puzzle I messed up. 2000, is that 6? I think they, yeah, 2068. And this was just a simple mate in 1. And you can see I showed with the arrow what I thought it was. I thought it was just checking, just a fork on the king and rook, and then taking the rook. But he has too many pieces in that position, so that's why that does not win. You know, you win a rook, but he's just got a bunch of pieces, and he's got really nasty threats. So it was just careless of me to play that queen check instead of looking for a better one and just like counting up the material. Yeah. And then, yeah, you can see, yeah, if we take the rook, then it's mate, which is pretty tricky. And then if we didn't take the rook there, we would have to do perpetual check to avoid getting checkmated. And look at this checkmate, it's pretty crazy with the diagonals there. So obviously pretty tricky to see. And then he does just have a lot of material there. You know, we had a queen and rook, he has queen, rook, and then like a knight and a bishop. So he's still winning. So here's a 2100 rated puzzle. I think I solved this one. And it's pretty nice. I mean, I guess I haven't played his move yet, but this does seem to be the idea is that you take his bishop. If he takes your rook, you take his rook in the corner. Wow. We took to... Oh no, you just fork the rook and bishop. So you trade and fork. And you have to trade before you fork, of course, because if you don't, then he will just trade. Right? So if we had just gone for this fork without trading rooks first, he would have taken our rook, we would have had to take back, and then he would have had time to run away with his bishop. So, pretty interesting idea. And he had no good way to defend that bishop with the rook. We were attacking both, obviously. He would rather lose a bishop than a rook. And if you tried to protect the bishop, the rook would have been hanging still. So anyway, here, I think it was queen g... Oh, could have been bishop g6. Might have been queen g6. I can't remember. I was kind of messing around here. But I think, yeah, queen g6 with the idea being that if he trades queens, we actually take back with the pawn, and then we have a very passed pawn that is definitely going to queen. And so he has to sacrifice his knight for that pawn. And
Yeah, here obviously you wouldn't have taken with the bishop there because then like you haven't actually won anything. In this kid position, notice how if he runs away, we're just making a queen. Like he cannot stop us because our bishop is preventing his king from coming to stop us. So the king does come to stop us, but because of that, he didn't have time to run away with the knight. So win a knight. Very nice. And I probably show one more variation here. Or maybe not. I don't know. I can't always remember. Oh, right. If he tries to run away, obviously our queen and bishop were attacking the knight, so he can't get away with that. So I just wanted to show you guys he really had no options there. And then, yeah, if you try to run away with the knight, it's real bad. This king cannot come to stop the pawn. His knight isn't stopping that pawn. We are making a queen. We are checkmating him very soon. So, pretty fun. Good puzzle. Next one, 2200 now. Getting up there. A lot of themes here. We have a nice checkmate. And it's not a very hard puzzle. All you have to do is just do the right knight check. And by right, I mean correct, not right. Don't take the pawn there, because if you take the pawn, your knight is attacking less squares. And so when you checkmate, you want to cut off all of the king squares. And you, I think, do you take the knight here and then checkmate? It says mate in 3, so I'm guessing we want to check with... Oh, you check and then take the knight, because that's actually checkmate. Look at that. If you take the knight immediately, which is probably what a lot of people did, it's not checkmate. And if you don't checkmate here, your opponent has more pieces than you, so you're probably going to lose, or draw at best. So you got to go for checkmate here, which is why we throw in this queen check, because it cuts off a bunch of squares. And then we take the knight, because that's mate, not because it's a free knight. We don't care that there's a knight there. We just wanted to checkmate. So here, I think I failed this puzzle, but yeah, it looks like the idea is probably... So obviously, yeah, that doesn't work. Maybe it's queen g1. We want to check the king, then move the queen in. We want to check the king in some way, and I probably just messed up the check. But we want to check the king probably in a way where we can promote our pawn. Yeah, so queen g1, because now if his king comes forward to try and stop the pawn, well, if the king goes anywhere on the back rank, we're checkmating with the queen and pawn duo. And then if the king... Actually, no, just checkmate. What am I talking about? Yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh, we promote a pawn. Well, no, you just checkmate. So he's like, oh, I better sacrifice my queen, so you checkmate me one move slower. And this is the checkmate. I'm surprised I didn't see that during the game. I probably just did a back rank check, because I was like, yeah, I already finished the challenge, it doesn't matter. But, oh well. What are you gonna do, you know? Boom, checkmate. There it is. So next one... Oh, is this the last one? I guess it is, and then I probably go in pretty good depth about this one, because it is a 2300 rated puzzle. If you're wondering, I did remember the moves. It's not like I'm just coming up with, or at least... No, okay, so I tried taking with the bishop when I did it, which was wrong. The reason you take with the knight is that even though it's not check, if he doesn't take your knight here, our knight is going to discover check him into oblivion, and so he wins some pieces, which is nice. Anyway, I guess that wraps up the video. I'm surprised there's footage. Maybe I need to cut off the end of this video, but yeah, I don't know. In a way, I made it to like 2300. I mean, not actually, because obviously Puzzle Rush, you get fewer puzzles and they get higher rated more quickly than, you know, a regular puzzle run. But I was pretty happy with this video. This actually took me, surprisingly, a bunch of attempts to get. here I'm going to show some analysis. But yeah, it took me a bunch of attempts to get this Puzzle Rush run, probably like 60 or something crazy. And they're quick. You know, you finish them typically within like 5 or 10 minutes, like 15 if you're really going slow, because there's so few puzzles, and typically they do seem to give you easier, even if they're like same rating as other puzzles. They tend to be like almost in a way easier than the puzzles you would normally get. I mean, that could just be my imagination, but yeah. So I don't know. This was fun. Definitely, if you're into puzzles and like challenging yourself, I would recommend. Puzzle Rush is great, and I did the mode where it's not timed, because you can do the one where there's like a time limit, or maybe that's only on Lichess, I don't remember, but I don't recommend that. You know, do Puzzle Rush, and then, or I think it's called Puzzle Streak on Lichess, if you want to do the free version, and just see how high you can go. You know, obviously here I got early 40s, but still into the 40s, which is pretty respectable-ish. But, you know, if you practice with this, you could probably get into the, you know, like mid 40s, maybe even early 50s if you're really, really good at puzzles. And yeah, I don't know. It is also nice, obviously, on chess.com. Unlike Lichess's puzzle streak mode, you do get 3 chances to mess up, which is kind of nice, because obviously nobody is perfect all the time. Sometimes you're going to miss really stupid easy stuff, so as long as you just review everything afterwards, it's not a big deal. But yeah, here I'm just proving, like, hey, I actually finished the challenge, and debatably went further than 2,000, although not perfectly. So if you like the video, you know, make sure you like it, subscribe, all that good stuff. This was a lot of fun. Gotta play more chess in the future. See ya!